Massive crowd turn up for Eala's match only to return disappointed. Despite winning first set, Filipino star loses to American Alicia Parks 0-6, 6-3, 6-2. Philippines' Alexandra Eala hits a return to US ace Alicia Parks during their women's singles match against on Day 2 of the Australian Open tennis tournament in Melbourne on January 19, 2026. Dubai. Perhaps even the Australian Open organizers didn't foresee what was about to unfold. When Filipino star Alexandra Eala was scheduled to play on Court 6, hundreds of fans poured into Melbourne Park, with queues stretching back toward Rod Laver Arena. In a city with a strong Filipino community, a huge turnout to witness the 20-year-old's Australian Open main draw debut felt inevitable. The decision to place Eala on a mid-sized court quickly drew scrutiny, particularly as match time approached and the queues swelled into the thousands. Many arrived hours early, fearing they might miss out, and many did. Unable to gain entry, they settled for packed outdoor viewing areas, watching on big screens. Frustration soon followed. Many believed the chaos could have been avoided by scheduling the match on a larger show court. Putting Eala on Court 6 is just dumb, tennis journalist Jose Morgado wrote, a sentiment echoed widely across social media and throughout Melbourne Park. Inside Court 6, however, the atmosphere was unforgettable. Every Eala point sparked wild celebrations. Philippine flags filled the stands, chants of "Let's go, Alex" rang out, and even routine exchanges were met with deafening roars that rippled across the grounds. From the seating to the courtside bar and baseline ledges, there was not a single empty spot. Eala surged through the opening set against Alicia Parks, taking it 6-0. But the lower-ranked American steadied and mounted a comeback, eventually claiming a 0-6, 6-3, 6-2 victory despite the overwhelmingly pro-Eala crowd. The umpire repeatedly appealed for quiet as fans attempted, unsuccessfully, to will Eala to victory. Eala was swiftly escorted from the court by heavy security, surrounded by as many as a dozen guards. "It was so heartwarming," she said of the hero's welcome she received throughout the week. "That's one of the things that makes a loss like today a little bit harder. I know a lot of people were rooting for me." While Eala has helped put Philippine tennis firmly on the map, she admitted the attention had sometimes been overwhelming. "It's a process to take it all in," she said. "This week there were definitely elements that were a bit overwhelming, especially during my practices. I didn't expect that many people to be there, so it's a learning process." Now ranked 49th, Eala's rise over the past year has been rapid. She trains at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca and cracked the top 100 last season after a stunning semifinal run in Miami, where she defeated world number 2 Iga Swiatek. At last year's US Open, she made history by becoming the first Filipino player to win a Grand Slam singles match. "I'm still young, learning how to deal with all of this attention, but also being grateful," Eala said after her loss to the 99th-ranked Parks. Despite the disappointment, she stressed the broader significance of her presence at the season's first major. "This is one of those moments where I can reflect on what this means for Philippine tennis," she said. "I'm the only Filipina in the draw this year, and I think the only Filipina who's ever been in the draw. So there are definitely positives to take away." When hope filled the stands, a crowd's journey from roar to silence. They came early, long before the sun softened and long after the gates had opened. They came in waves, wearing smiles, carrying flags, clutching phones already set to record history. Vendors shouted themselves hoarse, the smell of popcorn and sweat mingling with the sharp bite of anticipation. On that day, the stadium was not just concrete and steel. It was a promise. Alex Eala was playing. For many in the massive crowd, this was not merely a tennis match. It was a pilgrimage. Parents brought children balanced on their shoulders, whispering stories of discipline and dreams. Students skipped meals to buy the cheapest seats. Elderly fans sat patiently, their eyes bright with pride, recalling the long road it took for a young Filipina to stand on a global stage. Each seat filled carried a quiet belief: today would be special. The stands pulsed with life. Every warm-up swing drew cheers. Every bounce of the ball echoed like a heartbeat. When Alex finally stepped onto the court, the applause rose in a single, thunderous wave, as if the crowd itself had stood up to announce her arrival to the world. Flags fluttered. Voices cracked. Strangers smiled at one another, united by the simple joy of witnessing one of their own. But sport, in its cruel honesty, does not bend to hope. From the first serve, something felt off. The rallies were shorter than expected. The footwork, usually sharp and fearless, hesitated. Errors crept in quietly at first, then boldly, like uninvited guests who refused to leave. The opponent played with calm efficiency, returning shots with a precision that drained the air from the arena point by point. Still, the crowd believed. They clapped louder after mistakes. They chanted her name as if volume alone could turn the tide. Between points, they leaned forward, bargaining silently with fate. One break point, one momentum shift, one spark, that was all it would take. Hope is stubborn like that. It refuses to die quickly. But the scoreboard was merciless. Games slipped away. Sets tilted beyond reach. The cheers softened, transforming into encouragement rather than celebration. The stadium that had once roared now murmured, each voice carrying a mix of concern and denial. Parents stopped explaining and simply watched. Phones that once recorded now hung loosely at people's sides, forgotten. When the final point ended the match, there was no explosion of sound. Instead, a pause, heavy, aching, almost sacred. Then applause rose again, slower this time, steadier, laced with something deeper than excitement. It was respect. It was understanding. It was grief for what might have been. Alex stood there, absorbing it all. The disappointment on her face mirrored the feeling in the stands, but so did resolve. She waved, nodded, and offered a smile that tried to be brave. In that moment, the crowd saw not a fallen hero, but a human being carrying the same weight they were. As people began to leave, the energy shifted. Conversations were quieter. Footsteps echoed longer. Some shook their heads, replaying points in their minds. Others spoke gently about lessons, growth, and the cruelty of sport. A few wiped tears, pretending dust had found its way into their eyes. They had come expecting triumph. They left carrying disappointment. Yet disappointment is not emptiness. It is proof that something mattered. Outside the stadium, the banners still hung. The vendors packed up. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the pavement. And in those shadows walked thousands of fans who, despite the loss, would return again. Because supporting Alex Eala was never just about winning. It was about believing in the journey, even when it hurts. That night, the crowd went home disappointed, but not defeated. Hope, after all, does not vanish with a single loss. It waits patiently, ready to rise again at the next serve, the next match, the next dream. And when that day comes, they will return.